Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Confessions of a Pretty Hot Chick. You guys know how we get down, my sister and I, but tonight we have a very special treat. It's not men versus women, but it's all about understanding our mindset when it comes to dating, sex, and relationship. So, this is all about fun and educating while we're having some fun. So, let's continue to be respectful of one another and just find out not only about each other, but about ourselves in this conversation. One thing that I'm going to drop is a little quiz. I'll get to that a little later to find out your attachment styles so that our audience can go along with this and find out their attachment styles. But before I get into that, I got to do my little intro with my sister, my partner in crime, my road dog. Hey, Shayla.
Hey, what's going on? What's
Hey,
up? What's
mama.
up?
Hey,
I'm ready to
mama.
confess everything today. Everything. I ain't got nothing to
Everything?
lose.
Okay. I love it. I love that red lipstick, my love. Oh my God. That's hot.
Damn.
I like those shoes in the background.
Oh yeah,
Put
all
it
my
on.
paintings. Yes, ma'am.
I love. Beautiful, my little aunties. Love. And we also have two special guests. One, we've been friends, Elvin, I don't even remember how long. It's been, I think, more than 5 years. He's going to talk a little bit from a male perspective on what men expect from women in terms of love, sex, and relationships. Elvin Peters, who has his own podcast. Hello, Elvin.
Hey, good evening. Good evening. How y'all doing?
Good. Loving the tan. Belize is doing well by you.
Yes, it is. I'm home. I'm home.
I love. And we also have another special guest who has been a guest before and has some really interesting and thought-provoking thoughts on relationships, women, men. And we have Von Nickelberry also in the house. Hello, Von. Welcome, Von, Mr. Nickelberry. Okay, we're going to keep this going and bring Von in. Yes. So the topic is all about he said, she said. So I want to get into it because we've been hearing this for centuries about how women think and how men think in terms of how we move in relationships. So tonight, I want to debunk some myths. I want to talk about some attachment styles. I also want to talk about the 5 love languages because I believe in relationships it is so important to listen to one another and be honest about who you are and the baggage that you're bringing into the relationship. Because if you're not self aware, you do more harm than actual good in relationships. So let's get into this. First and foremost, but to my fellas,
Mhm.
first discussion point, first myth. A lot of women believe that men are emotionally unavailable. Do you guys agree with that? And if so, why? Alvin, come on,
You know,
Okay,
bring it on.
it's a double-edged sword. It is because, believe it or not, there is statistics that women do not listen, and the fact that women hear what they want to hear. So when a man is telling a woman
Oh,
how he feels, she immediately shuts down, and she thinks it's all about her. And one of the reasons why men do not share their emotions is because of that reason. One, because women don't show any accountability, and two, because women don't listen to men. And for instance, I'll give you a good example. I was just reading a post the other day about a guy having a conversation, and immediately women said, "Oh, he must be gay." So that is a challenge for men when it comes to women, which truly do not listen. And it's been proven, even ask them a question, they don't listen. And that's one of the reasons why men say, you know what, since you're not listening to me, I'm going to now withhold how I feel because my feelings don't matter to you. And since they don't matter to you, I'm not going to share those feelings with you. So men realistically do not have an outlet. Women have an outlet because they can talk to each other, they talk to therapists, they talk to their priest, whoever. But men's only outlet realistically is the barbershop.
Alvin, I have to, we're not going to say all women, But
No, no, no. But
to your
I
point,
gave a blanket statement. Not all women, but when I say all women, I mean
yes,
majority of women.
absolutely. Well, I will say this, and then I'm going to take a step back. Many women could say the very same thing about men not listening and
Mhm.
not being accountable. So that's an intriguing thought. So let me switch this to Shayla because I can feel you. What are your thoughts? Go to Mr. Nickelberry.
Listen, I've been on both sides of this coin.
Hmm.
Okay. I've been the one where I wasn't available, and I didn't want to talk because I had no business being in that relationship without doing my healing first. Okay. So there were times where I wasn't emotionally available. And then there were times where the guy was, and, I wasn't like not calling him gay or anything, but I'm like, I'm not there with you. I just think that it's just different wavelengths for people, you know, just different wavelengths. I'll just say that. We'll come back to it.
Well, and you know what? And going back,
Okay, I like that.
going back briefly, like prime example, how many times in relationships
Yes.
do men ask women what do they want to eat, and goes from there, right, that right there. Also, what's wrong? Nothing,
Oh,
nothing,
Oh, I want to eat
nothing.
all the time.
Yeah, but Shayla, you are the you are truly the rare, and you are that exception to the rule. Because I know you have girlfriends that be like, yo, that they don't know what they want to eat, or they're not expressing their feeling. Listen,
But
people talk about comprehension. I mean, people talk about communication, right? But communication and comprehension go
mhm.
together. You can't have one without the other. We can communicate, but if you're not comprehending, if you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth, then that's a problem.
Yeah, but what if not knowing what to eat is really translating to her just wanting to see what you want first?
And once
Because
again,
I've done that
that
as
is
well. I've said,
not
well,
communicating
I'm not going to
correctly.
say what I want. I'm just going to ask you, what do you want?
Once
That's just a
again,
courtesy, right?
giving the excuses to the lack of communication.
all right then. All right then. I love it. Vaughn, I would love to hear your response.
Well, I don't know if you guys would know this, but Greg Harden was one of he was Tom's Brady therapist. He was Desmond Howard's therapist. He was at the University of Michigan. And I remember when I went to college to play basketball at Eastern Michigan, was having contact or conversation with Greg. And he said, Vaughn, all men at some point have been emotionally abandoned. And I never knew what that meant. However, I also remember uh, I had a janitorial business and we were cleaning the bookstore. And for whatever reason, my eyes came across a book that said, If Men Could Talk, and I was like, wow, right? As a matter of fact, the author is from New York. I think his name is Dr. Alan Gotch, and he wrote a whole book, Unlocking the Secret Language of Men. And then I remember Coach Bill McCartney and the Promise Keeper movement. I don't know if you guys remember Promise Keepers, but it was a movement where men, I mean, they would literally sell out these stadiums all throughout the nation. And one of the things that they tried to get men to do was talk about things other than sports, toys, finances, and jobs. So the idea is, can men talk? Yes. But the question is, what could they talk about? And so when they told men we couldn't talk about your job or money, we couldn't talk about women, we couldn't talk about toys or sports or politics, guess what the men had a hard time coming up with? They had a hard time coming up with conversations outside of the stuff that we would consider quote unquote man talk. So I think that that most men, right, are abandoned. I remember my father, right, even as a young kid, when we talk about expressing emotions, I lived in a society that your dad said, what? Don't cry. Guys doesn't do this, guys doesn't do that. And so when you get older, guess what you carry into that thought process? You carry that in. And even if you look at the Latin community, we have this concept of machismo, things that men do that they shouldn't do. And I think that hampers a lot of our expressions as it relates to us expressing how we feel, because we live in a society that's shunned upon.
Mm,
On the flip side of that, you
yes.
have women are taught to spill it, spill it. Tell me how you feel. Tell me your feelings. We're told to, talk about our feelings all the time. So yeah, I get that. You
No,
wanted to say something?
no, absolutely. But I want to piggyback off something that Vaughn mentioned, which is about emotional expression and what that actually looks like in men. So, Elvin, tell me, you mentioned about the women being non-communicative, but my question is, what does it look like for a man to express himself? What does that look like? Or what can that look like?
Well, I think all of us at a certain age become a little more vulnerable and transparent. And so whatever that age is, we all
Mm-hmm.
get there. And sometimes, unfortunately, it is later in life, and it is too late for some women and some relationships because men are not expressive in being transparent and showing vulnerability. So, and it looks like it's a double-edged sword because damn if you do, and damn if you don't. And so that's it's detrimental to the individual and it's detrimental to the relationship and the friendship.
I agree. Fawn, what does it look like, in your opinion, based on the book that you were talking about? What does an emotional expression in men, what does that look like for you?
It looks like a mature man. It looks like a man who understands what he wants. It looks like a man who understands who he is as a person. Um, I think, man, we live in a society where for us it's brute and physical strength, right? We tend to solve most of our
Mhm.
problems with like forcing the issue, right? And so it's hard for a man to really, in my opinion, it's hard for a man to really get into tune with who he is emotionally because we fight against it so much. You know, it's a sign of maybe weakness for some men, right? I don't really want to tell her how I feel because I really don't want her to know. And I'm not talking about a guy saying I love you. Right? I always tell people or women, if a guy can say he loves you and it rolls off real easy and he's just now getting to know that that's a guy that probably just doesn't mean it. Because for a guy really to get in tune
Mhm.
with opening up with how he really feels, there comes a sense of vulnerability. And guess what men don't like? We don't like to be vulnerable. We don't live our lives from a state of vulnerability. I mean, it could be 2, 3 o'clock at night. I'm not afraid of going outside. It could be, 2 p.m. I'm not afraid of going outside. When I get ready to go to the grocery store, I don't care where I park. I can park by the light. I can park the furthest way. I'm not always looking over my shoulder in fear of what may happen to me. So, from a vulnerable standpoint, the moment a guy begins to open up to you, especially the person that he's with, he becomes extremely vulnerable. And that's a hard place for most men to be.
Mm.
Mm.
Right? I had to take a moment on that one. So it sounds like it's not just associating that discourages emotional vulnerability, because that's a bit what we're talking about right now. But what can women, from a guy's point of view, what can women do to encourage vulnerability in the men that they're interested in dating?
Well,
It's it's
Alvin said,
it's
I'm sorry, go ahead, Alvin.
no, get Vaughn.
No, I was going to say, Alvin said something extremely important. He said
Mm-hmm.
creating a safe place. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't know how many times we've heard in the relationships, we know uh, about the female who would tell the man, or even the mom, "You're nothing. You won't ever be anything like you're just like your dad." Right? Or, once a guy begins to share, immediately he's shut down or he's thrown into a negative light because you'll never be nothing, or you're just like your dad, or boy, you ain't nothing. And so we hear those negative things over and over, and guess what that do for most men? We tend to shut down. We tend to not say anything. Again, if these walls could talk, but you got to be in a position where you got to hear what the walls are saying. And even if you disagree, there has to be some type of safety net or some type of safe haven for the person to share how he feels and what's going on with him as an individual.
I love.
No. I was going to reiterate what I said, creating that safe space, and once you create a safe space, put it like this: once a woman creates a safe space for a man to be vulnerable, the amount of love that a man gives is completely it is overwhelming, it is enhanced, it is unconditional. And one of the things that we have a challenge with is saying that once again, Only thing that women love unconditional is pets and babies because we don't feel unconditional love from women. We don't feel that. So since we don't feel it, then we have a hesitation and we don't want to go forward and things like that.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, Alvin. And Vaughn, I'm going to ask you the same question. Alvin, what does that safe space look like?
What
What
does
is
it
that
look
safe
like?
space? Yes.
It looks like it's like milk and cookies. No, but no, it is. It's a warm and fuzzy feeling of security. Believe it or not, as much as women want safety and security from men, men want
Mhm.
a safe space of security from women. It is being able to hold in the conversations and secrets that he is giving her about himself and not using it as a weapon against him. Like for instance, a prime example, even though we listen, we all on social media. Let's just say a
Yeah.
guy has a problem. I mean, use impotency. As we get older, your sex drive goes down, and most men fail to realize that you could do natural things. But I was out one night in Harlem, and a couple was arguing. She hit him below the belt and said, "That's why you can't get it up."
Oh,
You understand? So now,
Not in public.
whatever the challenges they were having, she immediately. Ugh. See, here's one thing about women: men have egos, and women are sharp with their tongues. The two don't mix, especially when fighting. That's why when you're in a relationship, you're supposed to have fair conversations, fair arguments, not hit below the belt. Because once a man feels that he's safe with you, he will love you the way you have never been loved.
I like that.
Um,
Alvin, I like that a lot. Vaughn, do you want to add to that before
yeah.
I pose another question?
Yeah. One of the best books on relationships actually was marriage that I read was a book called Love and Respect. It was by Dr. Emerson Eggridge, and basically the idea was that men speak a language of respect and women speak a language of love. And so it would say something like, your respect for me will help fuel my love for you. And your love for me, right? That's what the guy would say. And the woman would say, well, your love for me would fuel my respect for you. And so this idea, as Alvin talked about, what she said, well, what she literally did was she disrespected him. And so what language does a man speak? He speaks that language of respect, right? And it's an awesome book. I know a lot of people don't like it, right? Because we talk about the song, right? Respect. Find out what you mean to me. What most people don't know is that Aretha Franklin sung the song, but it was written by Otis Redding. So it comes from
Hmm.
a male's point of view. So keep that in mind as we're talking about that language, right? Because that is the language that men speak. And guess what? Men hate to be disrespected, and women feel,
Right.
right, that we want to feel loved.
I love
We don't just want love, we want respect too.
thank you, Shayla.
No, 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 no,
We
no.
want
You're
respect too.
absolutely head shape.
And you also stated, Alan, unconditional love from women, right?
Mhm.
You don't feel that women can give that unconditional love. But I would say that women think that same way too about men. That you guys don't really dish out that,
Well,
unconditional love. We don't feel safe in that.
well, like I said before, we as men know the two things that women love unconditionally is pets and their babies. Based on the facts, women love men based on what the conditions they can provide for them. It's a fact.
So men
But
don't love women based on the conditions because if I
no,
gain
it's
about 300 pounds, it's not going to be
well. Guess what? If you gain 300, listen. If you gain 300 pounds, that man will still love you and encourage you to lose weight. I'm
Nah, that ain't
telling
always
you.
the case.
But it's the facts show it. For instance, did you know that over 50% of women have a Plan B man?
A
A
plan B
plan B
man.
man?
Yes. Did you know that?
A plan B man.
A Plan B have an option B. Over 50% of women, and
Men don't have a
no, they
men don't
don't.
have a
No,
plan B.
over 50% of women
But
have already said
what
that they have
about
a
with
Plan
all the
B.
infidelity though?
Oh, okay.
That's
Listen,
not Plan B.
we now we're talking about something else. We're talking about infidelity. That's one thing else. That's
Okay,
something completely
okay,
different.
okay. I'll let you
But
go.
but
Okay.
having a over 50%. Listen, CNBC News did a whole thing about it, about women having a Plan B man,
Hmm.
and once again, and that ties into that. Well, does she love me unconditionally? Because how can you have unconditional love but you have Plan B? You understand? Listen, you're in front of a computer.
No.
Listen, look it up. Look it up right now. Look it up. It's do women have a Plan B man? And watch the
But
results
men
you're
have
gonna get.
always had a Plan B woman, though. I
No,
think
they
there's
don't.
a rise
No,
now of
there's a
more women have a Plan B
no. Listen to this.
because of all
No,
the
men do not have a Plan B
unfaithfulness.
woman. I'm not going to disagree with you on infidelities. It is what it is, right?
Okay, okay.
Men will have women to have a physical relationship with. But most men do not leave their family to be with someone else. Women do. You're in front of
Okay,
a
so when you
computer.
say Plan B, are you just talking about just the option
Yes,
or
women.
the pursuit? Like actually,
Telling you, I did a whole show on it, and we did it on the radio. We pulled up all the facts. We could not believe the stats.
I have had a just in case, but
See,
not,
that's
but
your
not
plan B.
the Plan B
See,
option.
that's your plan
It's a
B.
whole option right there. It's
You
just
just
a
admitted
just
to
in
it.
case.
You just
It's
admitted to
different.
it.
It's different.
In the court of law, you are
No, it's
guilty.
well, I'm single. I can do that.
In a court of law, you are guilty. And once
Wait,
again, that ties into being loved unconditionally. Because let me tell you something. If when a man loves a woman unconditionally, he wants to work it out. There are things he will do. Women, you purely based on under the conditions where a man cannot provide for you or the things that you need. If he loses his job or things like that, we see it all the time on social media where women will step out because things aren't done the way things are supposed to be done in relationships and marriages. And that's part of being loved unconditionally.
Oh, but
Listen,
I
the
hear
word,
what you're
and
saying.
remember, somebody said something earlier about love, right? Love is an
Yeah.
action word. It is an
Hmm.
action word. I can tell you I love you, but do I show you I love you?
I agree with you on the action word in terms of love, but let me just go back for a minute.
Sure.
Those statistics, now again, we're not talking about all women. I just want to make sure listeners understand. We're not saying
No,
all.
we're making blanket
However,
statements here.
right. However, and this is the first confession of the night. Shayla, I'm going to come back to because you said you had some things to confess. So here's the first confession of the night. Um, in one particular relationship years ago, to your point about having an option, yes, there was a plan B. Okay, so that's my confession. There was a plan B. However, because I didn't deal with the issues that I had, okay, let me be clear on this.
Hey,
When you
Vaughn, you see
don't
this?
deal with the
Vaughn, they both
issues that,
admitted to it.
I, but
what are you going to do? This is confession for you as well. We're gonna
exactly.
go ahead.
I'm not disagreeing with what you said. What I'm saying is for Alicia, I did not deal with the issues that I had, my own baggage. Now, I did say at the beginning of the show about dealing with your baggage. So I was afraid to be hurt. So there was, in that relationship, there was a backup, if you will, or a plan B.
Uh-huh.
So that comes from in women not dealing with their issues in order to have that plan B. So let me just say that.
Oh,
But Alvin, I lost you a little bit, but
I'm
I'm gonna
sorry.
keep it rolling. I hope you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got my parents are leaving, so.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, in terms of those statistics, we can look at numbers, yes, but if we peel the layers back to find out why people do what they do, more often than not, it is because of either trauma or something that they've gone through that they have not dealt with. So what they're doing is now self-medicating. And one of the ways that women self-medicate is by multiple partners. Everyone clear on that, correct? Multiple partners. Now, I'm not saying 5, 6. I'm saying, well, in some cases, some women it has been that. However, but there had that plan B situation. So I wanted to point that out because yes, I love hearing statistics, but I don't want it to be a blanket statement. I want people to truly understand why people do what they do. And again, more often than not, they have not healed from their trauma. So that's why you have that plan B or multiple partners. And the same goes for men too. So Vaughn, I love this expression on your face. Did you have something that you wanted to say before I move this along?
You know,
Go ahead.
no, I was just thinking in something that you said. I remember a guy became extremely popular, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Bishop T.D. Jakes. He became extremely popular by teaching "Woman, Thou Art Loose," and it literally comes from the story that the Samaritan woman at the well who had five husbands, and so there was some trauma that she was going through, and she would go
Mm-hmm.
from man to man in search of something. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's something that we don't even talk about. We hear about Bishop Jakes all the time, but we don't talk
Yes.
about that. That woman, thou art loose, which literally stems from the story of the Samaritan woman at the well that Jesus had a conversation with, who went from man to man in search of who she was as an individual.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now,
Mhm.
I want to also make sure that we're clear on in terms of how women can make men feel more comfortable or what that looks like. What I gather from both of you, it means also for the woman to be a good listener, for her to create a safe space for when he does say some things that she may not understand or she may not even like. She could take her emotions and put the emotions to the side to truly hear what the man is saying and not judge him by his words or actions from a previous relationship. And that's the other thing that we tend to do is judge each other from our words as well as what we've done in previous relationships, as opposed to listening to understand. Would you guys agree with that?
Yes.
I would agree with that. But I also think that men, it needs to be reversed, because I know if I look at me, not only do I need to, be in a position to express how I feel, but I also
Mm-hmm.
need to be in a position to listen to what the other person is saying and not be so quick to speak. And so I do think that it goes both ways. And so I'll go back to say that, men do speak that language of respect. Now, that doesn't mean that women don't want to be respected, because you do. But you have women all over this country and in the world who had babies just so they could feel like they can love something. Men aren't trying to have a baby to feel like they can love something. So that language of love that women speak is extremely, extremely real. And it's the primary language, in my opinion.
Mm. And I'm going to get into the five love languages in a moment, but I want to move on now to myth number two. I want to cover four different myths. The second one is women only want commitment and security out of a relationship. That I can say for me and many of the women that I know, that is a myth. It's more than just commitment and security, as well as safety. Shayla, what are your thoughts on that myth that we only want a commitment and security or financial security?
Well, okay. Well, it depends on the time, the day, the situation, where I am in my life. Okay. There are times in my life that I just wanted, my needs fulfilled, and there are times where I did want something more. So it's not always the case where we always want that one particular thing, and we don't always want it from everybody or every guy that we come across. Okay, that's my take.
I love it. Alvin, your thought on the myth that women only want commitment and security.
Depends on the woman, right? Here's what I think. I think at a certain time in a woman's life, they realize
Mhm.
that's what they want. And for some, it becomes too late. But initially, that's what women are taught. They want commitment and security.
What is this too late?
Yes.
What is that?
What's too late?
What do you mean?
Listen,
Yeah, what's too late?
we all know that women want to have the time of their life. and they want to live out their best life. And the reality part is the body makeup of a man and woman is completely different. So at a certain time in their life, they got to stop playing those games and realize that things are going to change. So,
I
so it
think that
becomes
could
too
be a
late.
myth right there.
No, it's not.
Go ahead.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Shayla?
Well, like I said, I think that could be a myth right there. Too late. People have experience. We're all human. Things happen. You got different periods of time of your life. Divorce, married, remarried, want to get married, never want to get married, whatever. Okay, so too late to me is a myth nowadays because I mean you will really have to make the effort to be lonely nowadays. So
Make
Okay.
an effort to be what?
I also think,
to be lonely,
To be lonely. Okay.
times have changed.
And that's
Yes,
where
that's
there's
right.
and that's
Times
why
have
there's so
changed.
many lonely women. Well, not only lonely women, but
Well,
lonely
who
men.
said that?
There's lonely men and women.
Right, you got to say lonely women and lonely men,
That's
but
right.
there's a myth of that if you're single you're lonely, and
yeah.
I'm here to crack that myth and say
Oh,
that's not true.
that is not
you
true.
know
I agree with you.
so
I agree. I agree. Because
yeah,
we
so
did
when
a
I say an effort to be lonely because times have changed down the line, maybe back in the day, you were supposed to get married by a certain age, have kids by a certain age, and never get divorced. Now divorce is one of the most common things, right? People are getting married more times, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 times, and they don't care. And some people are not getting married at all. But the loneliness piece of it is something that you would have to make an effort because you can go out. You got more platforms. You got more dating apps and social media sites. So when I say you literally have to make the effort now, for it to be too late for you.
well, you said something that we spoke about in our podcast and the radio is that people don't talk about the happy, lonely people or people who are single. And there is a lot of people out there who are single and happy and enjoying themselves, having a good time like me. I'm here in Belize for the month, home with the family,
Mhm.
hanging out, and I'm loving it.
Right. Right.
I love, guys.
You go a different direction.
I know that we're living in a time where the rules of dating has changed and what women are looking for, our needs have changed. So it's more than just commitment, security, and all that. And many are financially successful, so they're not looking for financial security. They're just looking for someone that they could laugh, spend time with, a great companion, and someone that they feel can be a true partner. So that's where we are in this dating atmosphere today. So it's more about, I believe, self-fulfillment and not necessarily a partner.
Hmm.
We
So I just
also we have a lot of women also say, "I can finance myself, just love me."
Hmm.
yes,
A lot,
or
because
better
a lot
yet,
of women,
mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of women have said that, especially I think in our age. I think when you between 30 and 35, things happen in your life, especially as adults, and especially for women when they get to that 35 mark and they're single and they're now in their career, they're making money and they're making a great living for themselves. Something clicks and they're trying to figure it out. That's for all of us, but especially for women, especially at a certain time. Like I said, they can finance themselves. Just love me the way I need to be loved. Because a lot of my friends
No,
have said that. You heard it a lot of times. I can finance my own self because there comes a point where you're financially stable as a young woman because you in your career. And at the point now, you're not looking for someone to take care of you financially. You're looking for someone to protect you and love you.
yeah.
That's yes, but you know what I've found just in my own experience, what I found, because like you said, love is an action word, and many
Yeah.
people have their own definitions of what love is, and sometimes the two just don't agree or coincide with two people.
Mhm.
But what I've learned in my life, in my from marriage, single life, and all that, um, at this stage in my life, being that in the 50s, it's not just about love. It's about, do I like you? Can I have fun with you? Can we have a conversation and disagree on things without it escalating? Could the gentleman um, regulate his emotions appropriately? So it's not just the love element, it's respect, as you guys said. It is also understanding. And how well does he understand himself? Because at this stage of my life, I know myself very well and extremely comfortable in my skin. So it has to be more than just love.
Well, I
Hmm.
think in your 40, if you're in your 40s and you're
Yes,
50, you're single and getting into a relationship, and you don't know who you are and you yourself, then that's a you problem. And then your you problem becomes our problem because of your insecurities and your challenges that you've had in your life. So
absolutely.
it's so like I says, that's why I said earlier, between 30 and 35, something goes off in your head and things start to happen. Because it's just your biological clock is ticking for both women. Things are going on, but between 30 and 35, you're already at that mark. Once you get to 40, you should already be established, or before that, be established, doing certain things. And by in your 40s, if you're having those challenges for other people, like I said, that's a you problem. You should not be trying to figure out how to love somebody in your 40s, in your late 30s. That and by the time you're 50, it should be no brainer.
Right, but unfortunately,
I think
as evidenced by social media, there's so many people walking around not necessarily knowing themselves. So
All right.
unfortunately, that's the theory. It should be that way, but unfortunately, that's not the reality for a lot of people. So
Well,
I feel like
unfortunately, sorry to cut you off. Unfortunately, social media is a gift and a curse and a double-edged sword.
I
So,
agree.
um, listen, it's good one way, bad another way. We see how it is, has been in relationships, hurting relationships, also helping together. But if people go back to the fundamentals of relationship and the foundation of it, they wouldn't have the challenges they have now in their lives. Because they listen, relationship isn't rocket science. Me and my brother here talk about all the time. It's not rocket science. You like me, I like you. Let's get together, do the same things you like to do, and that's it. And then you worry about the stuff in between that goes along the way. It's not rocket science. It's easy. Check
It is,
check
but
yes
people
if you like me, check
complicate
no
it.
if you don't.
You're right, but people complicate it. Vaughn, I can feel you. Go ahead, love.
well.
Yes.
First of all, you said Alvin is in Belize,
Yes.
Yes.
and
Hmm.
what is it? 83 degrees there today.
Yeah, it's about 85 degrees.
Okay, and so that's why you laughing and just you got so much energy because we woke up a couple days ago and it was snow. So I just I
Right.
I just literally want to push you out the car, man. I just got to be real about that. I see you going in and out, and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to focus on what you're saying, but I'm sitting here like he has on a t-shirt and he's walking, and it looked warm at night, and I just want to say, you know what, man,
Look
you know
like
what,
he on vacation.
you guys can just kick him out the room, right? Because I'm just jealous. I got to say that, but I think we get to a point when we talk about love. I think we forget that love is a journey, and it isn't a place that we end up. It's a place. It's a place that we continue. It's a path that we continue to walk on, and we continue to go down. And I think a lot of what is missing is a model. Is a lot of people don't have a model of what does true love look like.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of what people talk about love is a habit. I don't know how many times you have people staying together because you know what? It's just a habit that I'm with you. Has very little to do with love.
Mm-mm.
But again, that's why the mom did it. That's why the grandma did it, right? And so I think what we need to begin to do as we talk about love is not come up with some fantasized version of what love is and they live happily ever after. We literally got to get that out of our heads because relationships are work. And the hardest part about that is working on yourself and understanding
Yes.
who you are. And so that's one of the things that I'm learning is that, no one has the best relationships can fail and the worst relationships can be made whole and prosper. And so I think we need to understand again, who we are as an individual. Communication is key, right? Not only that, but we
Okay.
also need to understand who our partner is, because there is no
Yes.
necessarily blanket statements, right? Because
Hmm.
in sometimes you'll have a female who would probably play more of an alpha role than the male. Is the male comfortable with that? Right?
Right.
And so when we talk about security and we talk about commitment, I think every that's not something that women want. That's something that men want, right? Men may not look for women for security, but they might look to their own skill set for security because I like to be secure. I don't like it when I'm not secure. Now, I'm not looking for a female to provide that security, but that's still part of the love path. I tell people all the time, it's a journey. It isn't
Yes, it
somewhere
is.
you end up. I mean, you're going to learn a lot about yourself, about the other person. The key is that you guys make that commitment together. The key is that you accept one another. The key is, right? And again, there has to be
Mhm.
some type of intimacy that goes beyond just the bedroom, and then again, it has to be that, it has to be the aspiration. Where are you guys aspiring to go to? And so those are
Yes.
things.
Yes, I love Bon. Well said. And I'm going to piggyback off the bedroom, which brings me to myth number three, that sex means different things to men and women. Do you guys believe that myth, that sex means different things to men and women? Because I, for one, believe, first of all, pleasure, connection. I don't see how that could be different from men feeling or looking at sex, pleasure, connection. Unless, and this goes for women too, and I have been guilty of that, where it's just pleasure, no connection. That's it. So, my question to you guys, do you agree with that myth that sex means different things between men and women? Are we not looking for the same or is it different?
It's
Wow.
different. It's different.
Yeah, right, right. I was,
Hey,
Hold that thought. Hold that
no,
thought.
no,
Tell me.
you get Vaughn. No, Vaughn, ain't Vaughn go.
no, no. I was going to say it depends on the person. Again, it
Yeah,
depends on that. It
exactly.
depends on that model. You know, what
Mhm.
is it that the person lives, right? I remember a poem, and I think we talked about it, Alicia, before. Children, children live what they see.
Yes.
And so if you feel like this is how a man should love you, right? And he's abusive to you, and if he doesn't abuse you, then it's not love. Well, we can say the same thing about sex for, that motto is so important, and so we need to get back to what a good relationship should be. What does a healthy relationship look like? Because we have people all the
Yes.
time in relationships and it's just not healthy. And then we base our image on relationships or about relationships based on a marred image of what the intent and purpose of marriage or relationship should be. Instead of us looking at the original and the purpose for it, we're looking at a picture that somebody else painted that has nothing to do with a true, healthy relationship. And that's the same thing about love or
Exactly,
sex.
because we're looking right from our upbringing, from what society says, or what a healthy relationship looks like. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I want to bring it back specifically for sex because the one thing is the approach could be different. And people will say, oh, guys want sex all the time and women don't, or vice versa. At the end of the day, it is really about compatibility and not this notion that men are more sexual than women, which is totally untrue. Does everyone agree with me on that? Yes.
I think that men and women can both a man. I'll say this: both a man and a woman
Hmm.
can approach sex
Get it?
in a similar way, right?
Hmm.
But I don't believe that it always ends up that way.
He's part of the podcast.
Okay, I don't believe it always ends up that way. I believe we can start on the same page and then we can end up on different pages. And then for us women, it's hard for us to express that we want pleasure. right? Because we're supposed to not say that, right? You're not supposed to say, look, choke me, pull my hair, all this other stuff, right? Anyway, you know, we can't
No, hold on. I'm
say that.
sorry.
If
We're
we
not
do
supposed to
say it,
say
we have
what?
to say it in a certain way.
Wait. What you say, Shayla? Women not supposed to say what?
We're frowned upon
Oh,
if we say, look, I want you to choke me, pull my hair, whatever, whatever that is, but we're frowned upon if we get like that, right? So it's not easy for us to always express that because we do want pleasure. Women want pleasure, but we can't always say like, look, I want pleasure without being seen in a certain light. I say
There it is. There it is. Alvin, your thoughts on what Shayla just mentioned?
I agree with both Vaughn and Shayla, but I think also
I mean, the woman
we need
might
to
want her
have
ass smacked
healthy
on a regular
sexual
basis,
conversation.
like
If you and I are dating, we need to understand what our likes and dislikes
I'm just
are,
saying.
and we need to
But it's
understand each
hard for her to
other.
express that, like,
Like you said,
hey,
pleasure.
what's wrong with you? Nothing. What's wrong with you? You okay?
There's
Because
nothing wrong with a little patty cake.
you didn't shake me a little
But
bit,
what I'm
so it's
saying is,
oh.
listen, people do not know how to have healthy sexual conversation. What do you like? What don't you like? And
Yeah,
sex for women, as we know, especially for us men, as we gotten older, sex is not just realistically, sex. A man will have an orgasm between 3 to 7 minutes. A woman is 8 to 13 minutes. That is a fact. So sex needs to be more understanding. It needs to be pleasurable. It needs to be emotional. It needs to have that connection, like Alicia said. So
Yeah.
it doesn't start just in because 1, 2, 3, wham, bam, thank you, man. It's over. It's over. It's done. And that's why having a healthy conversation about sex is important. You have what do you like? Foreplay. What don't you like about foreplay? What do you like about foreplay? Dislikes, toys. What turns you on? What turns you off? I'd like to be out. Since I was a kid, this girl stuck her tongue in my ear. I thought it was the most disgusting thing ever. But what I'm saying is,
oh, I have
those
a
are
question.
things.
I have a question.
Yes.
Question.
Answer.
Do you like your nipples played with? Just saying.
No.
Oh, here we go. Not all men
I don't, I don't think that that's a. I don't think that's not our sexual button for men. I mean, not for me. It is.
like. Some men it might be.
It's 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 weird. It's the weirdest feeling ever. It's freaking weird.
It's weird.
But there are men that I know that really like that,
See,
You know that?
but I wasn't into it.
yep, and
But I had to get into it,
yep.
you
Keep
know.
keep them men away from
And,
you,
and like
right, Alvin?
yeah. And like I said, it is no listen, foreplay starts from opening the door, women. I tell you, listen, I was on a date with somebody. I used to be a store manager for Mont Blanc before I got into the car business. And I got in and Mont Blanc sells autumn. If you're a watch person, they're under the umbrella of Cartier, IWC, Piaget, Van Cleef& Arpels, Bon Mercier, Panerai. Anyway, I personally grew up watching 007. I like a nice watch, an automatic, a watch that has depth. I'm on a date with a young lady. She said, "That's a nice watch. What kind of watch is it?" She said, "Why doesn't it go tick, tick, tick?" She said, "What is it doing?" I said, "The watch doesn't go tick, tick, tick because it's an automatic. So it glides and there's mechanical movements inside the watch." I had a glass bag and showed the movements, but I'm explaining the watch. But I'm explaining to her like it was explained to me when I was working at Mont Blanc. She said to me, "You have romanced the watch that you were wearing, and it turned me on."
okay.
Literally. So I say that to say we fail to realize that sex is not just physical; it's emotional, it's psychological, and then it gets sexual along the line. But it starts with those things. And each person is completely different. That's why those healthy conversations about sex is so important.
Very much so.
But
Very
listen, we
much
all know
so.
everybody is free. And it
Everybody.
all in their own way. Let me,
Yes, Lord. Absolutely. So, you guys are listening to Confessions of a Pretty Hot Chick, and we are talking about women, men, and just our feelings about dating and kind of trying to debunk some myths. And we talked about how important it is to create a safe space for our partners to be able to feel that they can communicate their feelings and not be judged or mistreated or having their things that they confided in you used against them. So it's so important to communicate. I'm not hearing. Okay, you're somewhere. It sounds like you're at a party or going through.
Mhm.
my family has she has the news up high. You know, all people like to have the music high, the radio, the news high.
Yes. Okay. Much better. But we're talking about trying to bridge the gap from these kind of these notions that people, men and women, have about each other, because at the end of the day I feel that we're really no different. We hear that men are from Mars, women are from Venus, but at the end of the day I don't
Both
really
of
feel
them.
much of a difference. It's just about individual issues and
Mhm.
communication styles. I mentioned there's a book called by Gary Chapman, The Five Love Languages. Are all of you familiar with the five love languages?
No,
Yes.
Okay. Shay Shay, you're familiar with it? Five love languages?
A little bit, but I haven't like read the book or anything.
Okay. So, two things that are very important in a relationship. So, this is all about communication. With the five love languages, it's about how people express their love and how they want to receive love. So, for example, one of the five love languages is words of encouragement, how you speak to your mate, the language that you're speaking. Two is gifts, clearly. The third one is physical touch. The fourth one, I believe, is private time, how much quality time that you spend together. And the next one, the next love language is acts of service, what you do. For example, you're living with someone and you know that they may be ill. So you may go out and grab a few things for them to help them feel comfortable, or the guy's had a real stressful day at work and you may want to rub his neck or back for him to feel a little comfortable. So those are the five love languages. So it's acts of service, physical touch, gift, words of encouragement, and quality time. So the question is, which love language would you like spoken to you? Is it through someone giving you something, be it a gift? Is it through spending quality time with that person? Is it how you speak to that person in terms of helping build them up, being inspirational? Or is it through acts of service? And then how
I'm
would
a
you
giver.
like love expressed to you? Say it again. I'll say it again.
I'm a giver.
You're a giver.
No, but but all jokes aside, I am that person. But I think, you know what, I know that I've never read the book, but I know what it is.
Mhm.
Um, I think I'm definitely acts of service to people, and I realized that throughout my life. That I love taking care of people, making sure people's okay, and family and things like that. But see, for me, it's a combination of all. I think, but definitely acts of service is definitely one of them. Is top for me. I don't mind. I can care less about receiving gifts, but I want to make sure if you're in my company, I want to make sure that you're okay and that you're good.
Okay. And based on what you were saying earlier in terms of how women communicate, it sounds like that how you would like to receive love in terms of the woman creating a safe space is not just quality time, but words of encouragement, how they speak to you, their listening skills. Because it's not just how you give love, but how you receive love and how you would want to receive love. And many people are speaking two different languages and not understanding what
And
their language.
yeah, that's something you said earlier. Once again, it's do you know how to love me?
Yeah,
That's so important. Do you know how to love me? And if you don't know how to love me, then love don't live here no more.
there it is.
You know what I'm
Fun.
saying?
Absolutely. Fun. What's your love language?
Words of affirmation.
Words of encouragement, words of affirmation. Yeah, same thing. Absolutely. Shayla, what's your love language?
Mm, I would have to be tied between, and again, I didn't read the book, so,
It's okay.
but I would have to be tied between words of affirmation and physical touch.
I love. Mine would be quality time. Well, let me say three way. Quality time, physical time, and words of encouragement, words of affirmation. So that is so important that we understand what we want to feel from a person in terms of how we want to receive love and how we give love. Now, the next, have you guys heard of the four main attachment types when it comes to relationship? Have you
The
heard of
four
that?
what?
Attachment types.
The four attachment types.
Mm-hmm. Are you familiar?
No, I'm
Uh,
looking it up right now though.
Okay, so there's four main attachment styles that we have. And it's either one, secure attachment, meaning that you know exactly who you are, you're secure in who you are, you know
Mhm.
how to communicate without allowing your ego or your emotions to dictate how you're going to communicate. It also you handle conflict in a mature way and you're calm and you know how to seek support and more importantly you know when to seek support. So that's secure attachment. So to give you an idea, a core belief of someone who has secure attachment is someone who knows that they're worthy of love and they can trust others and they trust themselves. Now, second is anxious attachment. And this is also called preoccupied. Now, that's someone who craves closeness, someone who's needy, someone who needs constant validation, someone who is constantly overanalyzing words, messages, moods. They're constantly feeling insecure and they need constant whether it's affirmation or reassurance that they're number one in your life, that you see them. They need your attention all the time because they fear loss. Next is avoidant attachment. This is also called dismissive avoidance. And this is someone who can't rely on others because they feel they have to protect themselves. So some of those characteristics.
Okay, you ain't had to read me like that, but go on.
But this is someone who downplays their emotion, someone who struggles with vulnerability. Also, they keep people at arm's length. And in relationships, they appear emotionally distant. You would think they're 1 minute hot, 1 minute cold. They have difficulty expressing their needs. They also feel smothered by too much closeness and they need to withdraw. When there's emotional or there's conflict, they withdraw easily or quickly. And the last is a fearful avoidant attachment, and that's someone who craves connection, but they're afraid of getting hurt. Now, this can be a mix of the others that I mentioned, but these type of people, they've experienced trauma, in most cases abuse or inconsistent caregiving from their parents or grandparents or both. They desire intimacy, but they're so deeply afraid of it. And in relationships, again, this one, very similar to the other, hot and cold, very distant. One moment they're with you, the next moment there's someone else. One moment you can reach them, the next moment they're not picking up your call. Or you text them, they may take an hour, 2 hours, maybe days to text you back. So those are the four different attachments.
Mm.
So it's very important that we're aware of this so we know what we're bringing to a relationship. Now,
Ooh.
obviously, all of these attachment styles come from or are deeply embedded in our upbringing, our biases. Wow, I love how you guys just have this look. So, for a moment, think about which attachment style closely resembles you.
I'm in therapy.
Take that as a compliment. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, love. So, fellas,
Okay, what is the first one you read?
secure attachment.
Yeah, I think that would be me.
Awesome.
I agree. Thank you, Alvin.
I'm secure attachment too.
How did I know you were going to say that?
I mean, listen, listen, I have it in front of me and I'm reading it. Um,
Yes.
listen, I'm blessed, and I say that because I'm home in Belize, and we came from humble beginnings, and my parents make sure they tell us that all the time. My parents are married going on 49 years, they live for 55. My grandparents the same way. So I come from a family where both sides of the family is from Belize, and our upbringing was a little bit different, especially coming to the States. So as I'm reading it, those are the things that secured us and our family. And like I said, we're just blessed and fortunate, you know. And when I see other people who have challenges in their home and lifestyle of their home style, I realize how blessed and fortunate that I am because I have a healthy relationship, not only with my parents and family, but my friends as well. And that's something that, because of how we were raised, that was our foundation to have a healthy relationship. Listen, of course, we all got people in the family who are crazy and don't want to communicate and things like that and are toxic. But for the most
Yeah.
part, my fundamentals and foundation is from a healthy relationship.
I love it. Thank you guys. I love the honesty. Absolutely. But I just want to say it is so important to understand when you're going into a relationship. And let me just say this, the most important relationship that we have is the one we have with ourselves first. The most important. Now, getting
Mhm.
involved with another individual. It's great. You meet someone, and like Elvin said earlier, you meet someone like, okay, I like you like me. Okay, feels good together. Let's roll with this. However, there are questions that we have to ask, not just what you like in bed or what you like out of bed sexually, but who are you when you're afraid? Who are you when you're angry? How do you deal with
Mhm.
conflict? What is your relationship like with siblings, with your parents, with your grandparents? How do you treat yourself in terms of self-care? What is your love language? What's your attachment style? What type of trauma have you gone through? What are you still healing from? What are your biases toward men, toward women, relationships, sex?
Mhm.
What are your fears? We have to ask these questions. Also, social media also plays another part in relationships. It's so funny how I've gone out so many times and I see couples sitting right across from each other on their phone at
I
dinner.
hate that. That's the
Right?
worst. That is the worst.
Absolutely. But these are questions that we have to ask because someone could look good, someone can sound good. And we all know that people put their best representative out front. But it is
Mhm.
so important to have conversations to find out, is this a good connection? Because if
Mhm.
we don't have the same values, if we're not compatible, if we can't have a conversation without it becoming toxic, then what's the point of moving forward?
Listen,
But how many these conversations?
I tell people all the time, I don't have the time or the box of crayons to play with you. I don't.
There it is. So I want to wind this down because on the website on fabulouslife.com there will be a quiz about attachment styles for those that are listening. If you want to take the quiz to see which is your attachment style, please do so. And then on that, we're also going to talk about a review. So you go on the website, you take the quiz, and then you see where you fare, and then ask yourself certain questions such as, what patterns do I notice in my answers? How do I usually respond to emotional closeness or emotional instability?
Mhm.
What conflict arises? How do I handle it? So again, we have to know ourselves and again be self-aware. It is so important,
Mhm.
truly important. So I just want to throw that out. But I am so thankful and grateful for this conversation with you guys because I think it's such an important conversation to have. But let's close this with, how do we bridge the gap? Elvin, with those statistics that you gave where women are not good communicators. With that being said, and there are a lot of men that are not good communicators, let me just say that. So I think it's twofold. how can we bridge the gap to be better communicators? Now, each of us has our own skill set. Each of us brings a wealth of experience and knowledge on the subject. What, and I'll start, Vaughn, with you. How can we be better
Um,
communicating and bridging the gap?
well, I think Alvin said something. He said, his parents and then his grandparents. Number one, I think is extremely important to have that model and then have that model teach, um, and you learn, right? It's like passing the baton. And what happens in relationships, even in communication relationships, is that baton isn't passed. We see, we do it because, I lash out because my mom lashed out, or I argue
Yes.
because my mom argued. So it's extremely important. It's really hard to have a conversation about a relationship when we don't talk about the previous relationships that we've been introduced to and how we view those relationships. So again, I think it's extremely important. Therapy is extremely important. I think because, sometimes, you know, you can think and, coming from a long marriage and then having uh, my parents married and the in-law, sometimes you think you know it all because you have good models and then there's no investment in self. And so just like love is a journey, communication and self-development is a journey. And the moment you say, I know it all, then that's the point at which you failed.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Shayla, how do we
I think
get better?
I think we have more conversations like this. We open it up and we actually hear each other out. We ask those questions and get the perspective. Get the insight. I've gotten a lot of insight tonight. So,
What'd you
like I
get?
said, this
What'd you get?
time is therapy.
What did you get?
That I need to love unconditionally. That I need to create a safe space. That I need to know what I want to eat every time I'm asked.
You
You
should.
know.
Absolutely. I love the other, I would love to, in addition to everything else that I've said, romance. I believe more romance. It's not enough romance. And I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about romance where you're listening, you're putting your phone down, you're taking a walk with your mate, you're dancing with your mate, you're lying in bed and you're just talking or you're just holding each other or maybe reading to one another. But there needs to be more romance in terms of communication. Because communication is not just words, it's also body language. But I believe there needs to be, again, more romance. Alvin?
I'm romantical.
Romantical? Love that word.
It's funny you said that. I just told someone on social media because they were having a discussion about can you take someone out for $70? And I said you can take someone out for $50.
Mhm.
You can take someone out for $10. And the place I used for romance was I said one of the most romantic dates you can probably do one of two things: Central Park picnic, or two, go to Grimaldi's under the Brooklyn Bridge, get a brick oven pizza, and then walk the promenade overlooking the East River under the Brooklyn Bridge and getting some ice cream all under $50, which is probably the most romantic experience you can do. One of the most romantic experiences in New York City that you can do for under $50. And you probably get some too.
You know what?
Right, Bart?
Hey, look, you know what? I was going to say, there's a 7-Eleven right down the street, and they have a picnic table. You can walk into
You know what?
7-Eleven, get a Slurpee, and get one of those hot dogs, and just have a picnic right there at 7-Eleven, and just sit on the picnic table and see things you never saw before.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be romantic. You wrap your arms around the cups and, you know,
Mhm.
Slurpees and nice.
Right? Okay. You know what? Quick question for you guys. What is Going back to confession, Shaylin. Everybody, this is a confessional period before we wrap this up. What
Mhm.
the one lesson that you learned from the most turbulent or the most toxic or the most complicated relationship that you were in where it just tugged at your heart? What did you
Hmm.
learn from that? The most hurtful. What did you learn about
Hurtful?
yourself? Yeah.
What'd you
Happy,
learn about?
pain, love.
Hurtful.
Yes.
What you learned about yourself?
Yep, that you learn about yourself. That the most complicated relationship that you had,
Hmm.
hearts in it, and your heart was broken.
Mm.
What was the lesson that came out of that that made you better?
Wait, you say your heart was broken. You can have, again, I only been in maybe one, right? But 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 I think one of the most in that was you have to bring a complete person to a relationship,
Mm.
right? Because I think sometime, and in my case, um, during my or after my divorce, I got involved with somebody I had no business being involved in. For the first time, my confidence was low, my self esteem was low. And that relationship was a knee jerk reaction to what had happened. And so it taught me that, you know what? Enter into a relationship when you're more ready than when you're not so ready.
Mhm.
I love. Thank you. Yeah. Shay Shay or Alvin?
You know, I learned a lot of things about myself, ugly truths,
Mm-hmm.
that I could be spiteful when I'm hurt. Okay. And I had to work through that. That's a long story for another day.
You must be a Scorpio.
No, Aquarius, actually,
Oh, you are the water bearer of the air sign. Okay.
Yes, yes. That I could be spiteful, that I could be a runner too, um, runaway bride, anyway. Just some ugly truths about myself. But on the flip side of that, I learned that um, I can love and be loved, but I need to pay attention to the right kind of love, you know. For one, love for myself. There's only depths that I would go because I have to reserve some of that for myself. Um, with that relationship. So yeah. Um, hmm. And also that it's okay to be by myself to heal. Like Bond said, make sure I'm in the right headspace for the relationship and not just doing it because you have that society pressure and everybody telling you it's too late, it's this, that, and other, you know.
Yes.
Um, but it's about the right kind of relationship, not just trying to please that once 35-year-old and everybody's telling you things what you need to be doing, and to sit down and have the right kind of person in your life.
I love. Absolutely. Thank you. Yes. Yes, Alvin.
Okay.
What was the question again?
All right.
What
What
was the
lesson
question?
did you learn about yourself from going through that one relationship that was pretty traumatic for you
I don't think I've had a traumatic relationship.
or hurtful? Alvin, I know you've been hurt, bruised.
Yes, Lord knows. Yes, Lord knows.
What did you learn
Um,
about you?
you know what? I will say this. I'll say this. I think we as men don't realize the emotional, physical, sexual, psychological stress we put women through. So it took me a long time to learn that, and I think that for me it was that hit button around that 30, 31 mark, 32, I guess, 48 now. But um, I realized that um, to to put the person first who I'm dating or involved with. And because since Alicia knows me, I'm very social, and I think the challenge dating me is that I treat everyone not the same, but the same, if you understand what I'm saying. And then that she didn't feel like she was number one. So it ended up being, or having insecurities on her parts, and then now she's lashing out, and then those insecurities come onto me, and then now I am now becoming, because like no one wants to be yelled and cursed at, and then I become defensive, and then those things create a toxic relationship, and then we end up leaving worse off than we started, which shouldn't always be the case. But what I learned about myself is being open, being honest, being transparent, being more vulnerable, and letting people know how you feel immediately before it gets too late. And also putting that person first, giving them, listen, people, we all have insecurities, but letting that person know that they are valued and loved in your life. I think that they, because I don't really have too many toxic relationships. I don't really have a really toxic relationship. I've never been experienced, because I shut it down immediately. No, I don't deal with toxicity. I just can't do it.
There it is. Exactly. Wow. Thank you guys for sharing that. I will share this with you in terms of what I learned. Um, I learned that we have to be able to take a breather, to not say exactly what's on our minds. So that shut the hell up pill that you have
Mhm.
to take. And I'm saying this specifically for my women that are listening.
You ain't talking to me. Go ahead.
Yeah. But I had to learn that strength doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be tough or come across and
Mm,
say exactly what's on your mind to get your point across. Sometimes it takes for you to step back and not say anything and get your thoughts together and ask yourself, what is it that is bothering me about this? Where is this coming from? And then once you have that discussion with yourself, then approach the person that you're with. But we have to be mindful, at least I had to learn to be mindful of the language of how I'm coming across to that individual. So that's the one thing I had to learn about myself, that strength sometimes can be quiet, and that's
mm.
okay.
Mhm.
I like that.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, thank you guys. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up about he said, she said, and bridging the gap and dodging these myths, or at least demolishing these myths? What is it that you guys want people to take away from tonight about relationships, love, and dating, especially today in this climate that we're in? What's the takeaway?
Have more conversations like this. That's the takeaway for me. We need to do this again.
Yes, I think there should be a part two because there's more, so
Yeah.
much more to cover.
Hmm.
Fellas,
Um,
takeaway, Alvin.
less is more.
Mm.
No, less is really more. Um, Take away that be be transparent, be honest, be upfront, and understand that less is more. You don't have to go over the top of relationships, because most people don't want a mansion to live in, because you can have it all but still not feel loved. So less is more. Simplicity. Be simple. Keep it like we say in the army. Keep it simple, stupid. Like we say here in the Caribbean. Listen, teamwork makes a dream work, right? Hand wash hand, two hand wash face.
I
Right.
like. All right. I like that. Vaughn.
You know, be in it to win it. Make the very best of it you can make, and understand that it's not going to always be sunshine. Be the best you could
Mhm.
be, so you bring the best you to the table.
Mm. Amen. Amen. Thank you, Alvin. I I so appreciate you, Alvin Peters. Thank you so much.
You're
Enjoy,
welcome.
please. I'm loving that tan. Oh my God, I'm
Wait,
so
hold on. Wait, no, hold on, Alvin. Just
Jealous.
since you're in Belize, just open the
Jealous.
curtains right behind you so we
I
can
know,
say
right?
hello to Belize.
You want to
We
see?
want
Oh,
to
you want to
see.
see this? Hold on a
Yeah, we
second.
want to see because I mean, it was 21 degrees
Wait,
when I
no, I'm
woke
gonna
up
go back to
today.
the front. Hold on. Let me go back to the front.
I mean, you got to show me something. We just can't end when you gonna
No,
be in
right?
Belize and we in the
The
United
ocean.
States and you talking about the Caribbean. This this is not even fair.
Telling you.
So
I want.
this is I'm in Belize City. This is Belize City right here.
mm.
And I should have showed you the picture earlier when I was by the hotel. My parents were at the hotel. They were by the sea. So people keep saying ocean. There's no ocean here. It's the sea. So
Wow.
we're
Oh.
along the Caribbean Sea. Belize sits along the entire Caribbean Sea,
Wow.
and Belize has the second largest and almost only living blue hole. Well, barrier reef. Excuse me. It's the barrier reef, and we have the blue hole, which is one of the number one diving places in the world.
Wow, nice.
Mm.
So
Okay.
this is your picture. This is it.
All right. Well, Alicia, you can kick him off
All
now because
right.
we all jealous. So just just
And
have him
it's
exit
spot, and I
exit
think
room right. Kick him off.
think
Nah,
I
you
think
ain't gotta go further. We done,
no,
man.
no.
Go
You
back in
should
the
you should have
house.
seen
Nah, go
you
back in
should have
the
seen.
house.
Listen, yes, yesterday you should have seen the moon because it's a full moon, and
Oh, wow.
on one side you see the sun setting, and the next side you see the moon rising, literally at the same spot. It is
Well
unbelievable.
well
Like I
hold on.
mean,
Wow.
Wait, hold on.
that's romantical.
You just
It is.
listen. You know we look at the same moon you look at unless Belize got his own moon, right?
Well, the moon is the same, but there's no fumes in the air.
Mm.
It's a clear night.
Alicia, just tell everybody by kick that kick him off.
Oh,
Just by go to bed, man. We done.
I'm trying to see if the moon is out. It's gonna be up soon though. It's gonna be up soon because it's just 7:30 here. So
well, Alvin, we got to visit. I told you I got to come to Belize. You know, you got to give it, hopefully an open invitation for Shayla
listen,
Vaughn.
let me tell you
Come.
this. The invitation is open. When I come to Belize, I stay a month each time or 6 weeks. And then my last week, I have friends coming. So next week on the 23rd, there's 13 people coming to visit me.
Mm,
So my mom and dad is here with my aunts who haven't been to Belize in a long time. My parents were here 4 years ago. I have aunts and uncles still here. And then drive all over. And then we go to the Keys, and the Keys is our islands. We call it the Keys. So we're going to the Keys this week. Next week, go to the Keys. We come back to Belize City, and then we'll take them to the Belize Museum, to the ice cream shop. So you get like real ice cream. Like everything here, obviously outside the States, everything is natural. So like when
yeah.
you go to the store, like when you go to like for instance, I went to Gwen's today to get lunch, and you get natural juice. So I got fresh watermelon juice. You get soursop. You get lime.
Mm,
You get orange.
Wow.
And you always have to ask, like here, if you're going someplace, the shops close early, but you have to say what's left. If it's after 1 o'clock, you say what's left, and they'll have things like rice and beans, stewed chicken, fried fish. And in Belize, it's 2 to 1, so $1 American is $2 Belize, and food here is very inexpensive.
mm.
Well, you know what? Tomorrow
So
I'm
whenever
going
y'all ready for a trip, listen, we can plan it.
to.
We
Let's
can
do
we can
it.
listen.
All
No.
We can
right.
definitely do it. The
All
best time
right.
to come to Belize is between November and end of April, because starting of May, it gets extremely hot. I mean, very, very hot. Like, hot.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Tomorrow I'm going
You
downtown
got to be
Detroit.
there.
Tomorrow I'm going
You know what?
downtown Detroit. I'm gonna look at the Detroit River,
Ron, are
and
you in Detroit right now?
I'm in Detroit. I'm gonna go downtown Detroit and look over to my Canadian friends and see the Detroit River and over to Canada, and I'm gonna wave and I'm gonna say, "Hey, this is from Alvin from Belize."
I can't. I can't. Guys, thank you so much. It's been great. You guys have been listening to Confessions of a Pretty Chick, and we will be back with definitely a part 2 because there's so much more to explore. But please, let's look at or make it our goal to be better at communicating, also challenge our assumptions, and as Shayla said, not be afraid to ask questions because it's all about having a conversation so we can come to a better understanding of each other. Thank you so much. Shay, my partner
Hey,
in crime. Thank you, girl.
I'm gonna leave you with this. I'm gonna leave you with one thing.
Uh-huh.
Change the biggest challenge in relationship. I kept thinking about it. I didn't say it. The biggest challenge in relationships is change. Three C's of life. You have to make a choice to take a chance, or your life will never change.
Like
I love. Thank you, Alvin. I love
I, Mr. Romantico. I,
romantic.
Mr. Romantico.
All right, good night. Good night. Talk to y'all later.
Thank you much.
Bye.
That's great.
That was great.
You stop recording yet?
I'm getting ready to end it now and call you.
Okay.